I'm going to make panzanella, which is a fantastic way of using up a couple of really sort of classic leftovers, I suppose, things that people often find they're left with, and that's really ripe tomatoes and some stale bread. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the skin off the tomatoes. So I've cut little crosses in the bottom of the tomatoes, which just helps the skin to come up. And then I'm just going to take the core out. That's a little bit at the top of the tomato that people often leave in. It's a bit woody, it's a bit gnarly, it's not really nice to eat. So I'm just going to tease that out with a knife. I'm just going to put them in boiling water for a second or two. That's going to release the skins, and then I've got some iced water, which I'm going to drop the tomatoes into, just going to lift them out with a slotted spoon, and that will stop the cooking, because I don't want the tomatoes to cook, I just want to release the skin. So now I'm going to peel the tomatoes. So basically, as you can see, that just dropping them into boiling water has made the skins really easy to take off. They're just coming off really, really quickly. So I'm just going to do that. Now, if I was making a vegetable stock or a chicken stock, I could keep the skins, because they've got quite a lot of flavour in. So I could pop those in with my chicken bones and any carrots, onions, or whatever, and make a chicken stock. So even this process, there's no waste. So now I've got skinned tomatoes. Now what I want to do is just chop those up, but I want to keep the seeds and the juice. I've got a bowl here, and I'm just going to squeeze the juice, just tease out the seeds and the juice from those into the bowl, and that's going to be the basis of the dressing. Okay, so tomatoes are one of the main ingredients and one of our leftovers. Then the other is bread. This is stale bread. It's like the last end of the bread. You know, I've had all the slices out of it, I've had all my toast and what have you, and I've got just the end of it left, and I'm just going to break it up into sort of thumb-sized pieces. So just really rustically, really coarsely, just breaking it up into a little tray. I've got the tomato juice and the seeds in there, and I'm going to add a little bit of red wine vinegar. And it's really one of those things that you do to taste, really. You know, that was probably about a tablespoon that I put in there. But what I'm going to do in a second is taste the vinaigrette, taste the dressing, and see what I think, and then add more vinegar if I think it needs to be a bit sharper. And then some really nice extra virgin olive oil. That's probably about 3 tablespoons. Just give that a little mix. I'm going to taste that, see what it's like. That's really lovely. The tomatoes are really ripe. That's really good. So what I'm going to do is chop up the tomatoes, rip up the basil, add my other ingredients. But I'm going to put the bread into the dressing now so it soaks and it soaks up all the flavour. Just going to give that a little mix. That's going to start absorbing the dressing. I don't want it to get too soggy, so I'm going to finish off the dish now and just roughly chop these tomatoes. Okay, so I'm going to pop the tomatoes in there. Okay, and then I've got my store cupboard ingredients, so things that I've just got in my store cupboard which allow me to make this just out of tomatoes and bread. So I'm going to add a little pinch of capers. Obviously they're quite salty, so I'm not going to add too many, but just a few capers which will give it a real saltiness. Again, another salty ingredient, but a delicious one, some anchovies. I'm just going to tear those up a little bit. They're a bit big as they are, so just tear those up. And then some olives. Now, the olives are whole, so I'm just going to chop them very, very roughly. And then for a bit of colour, I'm going to add some basil. So very sort of roughly just going to pick this straight into the bowl. And then, without any real sort of grace, I'm just going to toss this together with my hands. And that's our panzanella.